Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order. Will you please stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'm going to do the roll call. I did receive notice from Councilman Diamond. She will not be able to join us tonight. So she is absent tonight. Councilman Loy?
Here.
And Councilwoman Kesty?
Present.
Councilman Henderson?
Present.
Thank you. Councilman Koch?
Present.
Councilman Burns?
Present.
And Councilman Lavaca?
Present.
Okay. All right. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda while striking item 1 of unfinished business.
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay. So a motion has been made to approve the agenda with the striking of item 1 under unfinished business. I have a first and a second. Are there any comments or questions?
No, I just in my opinion, I think I would agree with that. I thought that this was done, so yeah, I would agree with that.
Can I ask, is this different than what was voted down at the last meeting?
Yes. We've put a lot of work into the information included in the packet to provide additional context.
The motion that was made at the last council meeting was the idea that, what was said was that they were two separate items and you guys voted both of them down together as coming together. That's the way we interpreted it. That's the way it was actually, the motion was made. So after that was voted down, then a motion was made, and I believe it was by Councilman Lavaca, just to bring forward the HR position.
Yeah,
So-
because there was pretty good consensus that we were not willing to go with that full-time, make that a full-time position when we were getting Janine. I mean, we've had this discussion quite a bit, almost at every meeting for the last 4 meetings or 5 meetings, even workshops, and it just keeps coming to the table. So it's weird that we got it back again.
It's not weird. It's actually quite important. It really is. This is something that is needed in the financial department and also for good service within the city of Sedro-Woolley. I mean, that's what we're here for, is for the citizens. And there are things that are not being achieved or done because they're shorthanded in the finance department.
So with Janine's support, I think there will be more that gets done. So I think motion's on the table.
I also, was kind of the opinion that a consensus had been reached. And, going forward, I think we should, that it could be considered as part of the new budget process, I guess, depending on what's going on in the office. Maybe see with the new halftime position what is needed. Sorry, stole your idea.
I would just like council to consider what I have presented. So I would just like council to consider the information I have provided during this meeting, and that discussing it as an item in the agenda is probably the best place to answer all of these questions.
Okay. All right. So do you want to pull your motion?
No, I thought we were about to vote.
We're voting.
No, I do
But
not.
he can pull his motion if he wants. Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion carries. Moving on to consent agenda, items 1 through 5. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda while pulling item 5 for discussion, please.
Okay. So we have here tonight, we wondered if that would be a concern. So the director of the YMCA, Dean Snyder, is here, and he has brought with him Tom Pierce, who actually has been putting the term and the lease together, and also Jen Hutchinson. And I don't know if anybody would like to come forward and maybe answer some questions regarding this? Okay, go ahead. You can come forward to the podium. Make sure the blue light is on, so.
Yes.
It is, okay. So you have questions?
What I didn't see in here, anywhere in the proposal that we were given was any kind of a dollar amount for a lease extension. You just kind of want to give us a basic shakedown of what it is, since you're the director, so you probably have more information than we have in our.
Right, so the original, this is an extending of the original lease, so the extension, the particulars aren't in the extension, but nothing has changed of the original lease, it's just extending it. So the lease is for $1 per year to be used for public service. So it's continuing to use the facility for public service. Right now, that public service is being used for youth drop-in, and it's like an after-school program for youth that runs throughout the year, and feeding youth there as well.
I think it's a fantastic program. It's right down the street from my house, and I see a lot of kids using it. Can you give us some insight on the grant that you're going to potentially be receiving with the 15-year control of the site, and what that grant's going to go towards?
Right, so this is, the specific grant that we're looking at is Department of Commerce, and it is the Youth Recreation Facilities Grant. And our intent with this is to add infrastructure to that building, specifically a kitchen, so that we can do a better job of making meals and cooking for youth. It's an additive piece to the facility itself, so as the owner of the facility, the city benefits from that process long-term. It allows us to build a fully commercially accessible, usable kitchen in a kind of central space. So that's that particular grant, and as a part of the requirement of applying for that grant, we have to have control of the facility for the length of period of time that is listed in the amendment. There are other potential grants that we would use as well. Some may be operational in nature, that might allow us to bring mental health supports or other supports for youth to that space. But most of these grants that we would be applying for do require some length of control of the facility.
Are there any other user groups besides the YMCA that have access to that building?
Right now, we're the controlling user group of that. If we have other partners that need to use that space, we bring partners in to use the space as well. Right now, our program is Monday through Friday, or I think it'll be back to Friday again by this month, of 2 o'clock till 8 o'clock p.m., and that's the current use of it. Should we be using it other ways through the weekends, for instance, that would all be public use as well. And certainly usage by other partners is also a possibility. It's written also in the agreement, the original agreement, that any partner who would use that would have the same financial agreement we would. It limits that we wouldn't be able to charge rent to someone else for the use of that space, nor would we want to. Ours is just the idea of serving youth in this community.
Thank you. The only reservation I would have about extending this, obviously, if we don't extend it for the 15 years, then they don't get the grant funding, or the potential to get the grant funding. The only reservation I would have with this is, as a growing city, that is an asset. It's a building that we do own. And any kind of expansion we'd need to do, or we'd need to reabsorb that into our city's inventory of an operating space, we'd be unable to, because the building would be shored up until 2039. That's the only reservation that I have.
Councilman Burns?
I think that's a spectacular use of the space, as far as I'm concerned. We need more things for our youth to do. I applaud what the YMCA does for us in the community, and I personally see no issue with extending this. It's something I'd like to see here long into the future, so if we are boxing ourselves in on that property, then I'm perfectly fine with it.
I just had a question. So my understanding, when that library ceased to become a library, there was quite a number of repairs that were needed. So this grant would help basically improve the property, city property, that we don't have to pay for, which to me is a great idea. I also want to say that I'm a huge fan of the Y. In fact, years ago, I was one of your volunteer basketball coaches.
Oh, thank you.
And the facility in Sedro-Woolley provides an outlet for kids. I mean, if children and teens aren't in sports or in school activities, too many of them we see just walking or wandering around the streets of Sedro-Woolley. With this program, which I think is a fabulous program, it gives them another option for those kids that maybe, aren't playing sports or aren't in drama or whatever. And I just applaud that, and I think it's long-term. It can do nothing but benefit the young people of Sedro-Woolley, and thank you for even considering us.
Thank you. I would add that in the little over a year, not quite a year and a half that we've been operating in that space, we have upwards to 400 Sedro-Woolley youth coming to that space that we have registered in that space, somewhere between 60 and 80 youth there every evening that we're open. So it's a well-accessed space by the youth of Sedro-Woolley.
Right, we've included in the packet where it is, of course, a free drop-in center. There's over 3,600 contacts from 364 youth served in last year alone. There were over 7,200 meals provided in 2023, and operating from 2:30 to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there is a food and clothing pantry. And I know, Dean, that when we talked about this and we put it together, the idea was that we really hoped that this would offer kids the opportunity to see opportunities for themselves, other than, as is most of the cases, where they're just wandering the streets or hanging out in the parks and not doing anything, but the opportunity to find a path that would lead to a good life and have them come back and be great citizens in the city of Sedro-Woolley. So,
For the goal, yeah.
So it is a great partnership. I'm very grateful for the
As
Y
are we.
being here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councilman Lloyd?
Oh, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I've been hearing about a teen center in Sedro-Woolley for 30 years. This is the first one that I know of that's gotten off the ground. So I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
I just had one question, if I may. On the improvement projects, you mentioned the kitchen. What about other improvement processes on that? Is it still the responsibility of the city at this point, or would it be the responsibility of the Y to upkeep, maintain roof, windows, sills, all that?
So we actually have a progressively transitioning responsibility of maintenance of that space. So City Administrator Bush and I worked on an agreement that this group approved that has, for the first 2 years of the agreement, or first, I think it's 2 years, there's a 75-25% sharing of responsibility of the systems updates in the space. So systems, HVAC, electrical, and so forth, plumbing, and so forth. And so in those first 2 years, it's a sharing with the city owning 75% of the responsibility under the idea that this is based on the lifetimes of the systems. So we're taking over the system at a particular point in its lifetime. Right now, those first 2 years, 75-25. The next 2 years, it'll be 50-50 sharing. And after that, 75-25 is the sharing of that. So it's a transitioning of responsibilities where in a matter of 2 more years, it's weighted evenly and then weighted on the Y to cover the expenses.
And are you guys, not that it matters with this topic, but are you working with the senior center on mentorship programs? I mean, I think they mentioned that in the past. I'd mentioned that. The kids mentioned wanting to do it.
We've had conversations with them. We don't have anything formal going at the moment, but but we've only been open a year, so we're just kind of getting our program started. But that's a great opportunity. Intergenerational mentoring is, there's lots of positive data around that concept.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there when they first opened up with the kids, and they were saying they'd like to have more tutoring, more, security at schools, more ability to recreate around town. And so I mentioned, are you up to have the senior center mentor with you? And they love the idea. And we almost had it off the ground, but I don't think it made way. So it's something to consider. But yeah, I do think that a teen center in the middle of our community has been a big value added, for sure. Thanks.
So is there a motion to move forward with the consent agenda, items
Madam-
1 through 5?
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to touch on the number 4, the Cascade Job Corps.
Okay.
And this is a pretty formal, standard procedure from what I read within it. But we do have a lot of tagging that goes on up there. We have a lot of spray paint that goes on up there.
Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's pretty continuous, and it got to the point so bad to where even the electrical boxes where people were taking Sharpies, and it was spray paint zone. So if we're in an interlocal agreement to stop crime up there, to work with them on law enforcement, why do we see so much tagging? Why do we see spray paint everywhere and vandalism in all the buildings?
I think that's just what happens sometimes. A lot of vacant buildings there and such. It's still their responsibility to clean it up.
Can I respond to that? It's in my ward, and I walk those trails, my wife and our dog, on an almost daily basis, and I agree with your earlier statements that the barns are dangerous. And I think, Kevin, you said that they might be taken down. Yeah, that's a money thing. So they're dangerous. But the tagging, there's a lot, besides the Job Corps kids, and I know there's several hundred of them, there's a lot of people that use those trails. And it's, there's the disc golf, and we probably pass 20 or 30 people every time. So it's heavily used. So, I don't know who's doing the tagging, but, I think it's kind of a hangout to put it.
I think if we're in an agreement to have an interlocal law enforcement agency, we should see some decline within that tagging and work with the teens and the groups up there. Maybe they can get some paint. I wouldn't recommend going in the buildings. Unfortunately, they could be doing malicious stuff in the buildings and get seriously hurt and then sue the county, of course. But some way to fix that problem. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention on that. I think the agreement's great. It's pretty standard. It's what we're doing. But I did want to touch base that it doesn't appear that there's any law enforcement and hasn't been for some time. So if we can get with the directors over there, get with the teens, and really work that out somehow, that would be awesome. Because it's a representation of our community. That's what people see, 30 to 40 people walking around, how many people play. That's what they see Sedro-Woolley as. It's not our youth doing it, right? It's not our high schools, that's for sure.
I'm trying to remember when we actually took over that property, but a lot of it was there prior. You got a lot of stuff that's there prior, that's still there from the county.
Yeah, I know that they went through and painted a lot of it many a times at some points, and there's pictures on that, so, yeah.
About the barns, and we're talking about Job Corps, right?
Right. I
Right,
think you're
yeah.
thinking of two different areas, the Northern State Complex and then,
So Northern State is where Job Corps is, and then the Northern State Recreation Area is very close to park areas to go and cruise around and hang out at nights and be kids, right? I understand that. But being kids in very dangerous areas and then just decimating the entire area they're at isn't cool. There's got to be accountability, that's all I'm saying.
I think it would be a smart idea to at least alert Job Corps to the dangers of those barns. But my understanding, I went to a luncheon at Job Corps, is that, I'm sure the system isn't perfect, but that they, the students just can't wander off anywhere they want. They have to stay on campus. They have to get a pass. It's pretty restricted. In fact, some of the complaints about Job Corps by students is that they feel like they're in jail because they're so restricted on what they can do and when they could leave.
Okay. So with any more questions regarding items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda? And if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve all 5.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Cock and and motion by Councilman Lavaca to approve consent agenda items 1 through 5. Is there any more conversation questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, very good. Good conversation, and thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it. Okay. Next, we have introduction of special guests, and we have Emmett Wild, who's going to be talking about the Skagit Conservation District, and he is you're the district manager, correct, Emmett?
I am, yeah.
And just so you know, I believe it was handed out, there's a flyer that talks about the Skagit Conservation District, if you wanted to follow along. All right.
Well, thank you for having me here today. I just wanted to kind of reintroduce the Conservation District to the city of Sedro-Woolley, and then also talk about our system of rates and charges. So the Conservation District is a special purpose district. We're non-regulatory and non-enforcement. We provide free technical assistance, grant application assistance, cost share assistance, and in-classroom education throughout Skagit County. We were created in 1942, and we are largely funded by grants. We have a staff of 11 people. We provide a lot of farm planning services. We are state mandated to help with dairies and to provide dairy nutrient management planning. We do quite a bit of education for both adults and children. In City of Sedro-Woolley, we've worked quite a bit with David Lee through the NPDES program. That's been a great relationship. I have here with me also today Carla Glassman, who is our Outreach and Education Coordinator, and does a lot of that work here in City of Sedro-Woolley. So I also wanted to just talk today a little bit about our system of rates and charges. In 2019, we adopted a system of rates and charges with the support of the county commissioners, and that allows us to charge a $5 per parcel property charge. The state statute, RCW 8908, also allows us to charge per parcel or per acre fee, and we elected not to do that. We just think that it's a little bit more complicated and it can be burdensome to some people. We also have exemptions from that rate for low income and elderly folks, public lands, tidelands, and tribal lands as well. And people can elect to get off of our charge there. So what is City of Sedro-Woolley and the residents here getting for that services? We do quite a bit of in-classroom education with Cindy Pierce, who lives here in Sedro-Woolley. She goes into K through 5 schools and does the watershed model presentation, teaching students about nutrients and pollution and how that runs through the landscape. We also have a watershed master's class and a backyard conservation stewardship class, which Carla runs. We have pretty good attendance from folks here in Sedro-Woolley for that. Just 2 weeks ago, we did our annual youth tour, which gets 5th and 6th grade students out at the Pomona Grange, and we teach them, about a lot of our natural resources activities here in Skagit County. We also have the annual conservation poster contest, and this year the students that won were from Sedro-Woolley schools, so thank you for bringing us really talented artists. And we also have leveraged our rates and charges funding to get other grants. Rates and charges accounts for about 10% of our budget, but we use that to get many other federal, state, and local grants to further our work. And one of those includes a grant from Department of Ecology to partner with Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group to do restoration at Riverfront Park here in Sedro-Woolley. And that planting happened this spring in part. We do a lot of partnership with a number of different groups and agencies, municipalities. We work with several state agencies, including Department of Ag, to help provide technical assistance and voluntary conservation. We also partner with a number of nonprofits and advocacy groups, including Western Washington Ag Association, And we have a seat on, or I personally, in my personal capacity, have a seat on the Skagit Watershed Council Board, and that's a very different organization from what we do that focuses on specifically salmon recovery efforts. We do a lot of work to kind of guide them towards a voluntary measure and keep those efforts focused on public lands as much as possible there. So, yeah, I'm happy to take any questions you guys might have. We are looking to renew our rates and charges system, and that's why I'm here sharing that today. It has a 5-year sunset clause, and that sunsets at the end of the year. So,
Okay, thank you, Emmett. Are there any questions for Emmett or Carla?
What do you, go ahead, Nick.
Thank you very much. So are the rates going up? They're just a standard, they're,
yeah, our board is not interested in raising rates, and I think we've done such a good job at using rates and charges to kind of dig ourselves out of the funding hole that we were in and to be able to leverage other grants that we don't need to raise those at this time. But we do have a forester position, which was funded in part by the rates and charges grant. And that position will go away if we don't continue it, but we do not need to raise rates at this time.
if you do need to raise rates, what's the process of that? Is that a vote through the voters, or is that the RCW gives the ability to?
Right now, we're not able to raise rates.
Yeah.
We could ask to implement that per acre charge, but that would be the only additional thing that we could do. The state has capped us at $5 per parcel, and unless Skagit County grows to 480,000 people, that's our cap. So
Yeah.
we feel pretty comfortable about that.
Nice, thank you.
Councilman Henderson?
No, that was my question too.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Everybody's got money on
Mayor?
Go ahead.
I just want to say it sounds like a great program, especially the outreach to children. Keep doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation to work with the children to, what'd you call the little fish that you were, little fries, I guess, that you were putting them into the lake. That would have been a lot of fun. I wish I would have had opportunity to do that. So, but I appreciate the invitation to do that. So thank you. Sixth graders. Thank you so much for coming, Emmett. Thank you so much, Carla, and thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work you're doing. Great work. Thank you. Moving on to city administrator report. So Charlie isn't here, but Kelly, do you have something to fill in for Charlie?
Nothing to report.
Okay. How about any of the other members over there? Anything? Okay. All right, moving on to council report. Councilman Loy?
Well, I just want to assure everybody that we're still plugging away on our skateboard competition. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. I just wanted to invite everyone tomorrow at Union Cemetery at 10 a.m. if you'd like to place the flags out on the veterans' headstones. So 10 a.m. tomorrow at the cemetery.
You do that every year, don't you? Yeah, it's great work, thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Last Monday, I had the opportunity to do a ride-along with the police department. I went with Officer Moore. We toured the town, and Chief, you got the best crew around, so really, you should be proud of your guys. I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Cock?
Two things. One, I want to thank the administration for getting us the agenda and packet on Friday to allow us all weekend to read it, because it's a lot of language. Also, we had the Finance and IT Committee meeting today. We talked about the 2025-26 budget calendar. There's calendars for staff and council meetings, and there'll be several public hearings on it. The budget also will include utility rates. And then we had an interesting discussion on business licenses, what additional business license categories we should consider, such as mobile businesses. Nothing decided, but it's an interesting question. And then Woody gave us a great update on what's going on, that he's applied for a grant, which is super, and that he gave us information on the website and social media. That's all for me. Council members Kesty or Burns, do you have anything to add?
I think you covered it well. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Burns.
I just want to remind everybody, Sedro-Woolley Lions is doing the log drive this year, and you can purchase your tickets locally for $5 for members. And make sure if you're going to be in the Log Rodeo Grand Parade, get your application in. Also wanted to thank everyone who's prepping for Memorial Day, the American Legion, and what they do for the service on Monday. Make sure everybody sets aside a moment to think about the people we've lost that helped give us our freedom. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Lavaca.
I got some comments on the police car that was on Township, and that was very much so appreciated. Great reminder that the lights go on when you're going too fast. I had that happen a few times. And it's like, oh yeah, I gotta slow down. So it was awesome. It was a great way to handle traffic and get people going, okay, this is the speed you really want to be going. So a lot of appreciation for moving that car around and getting those to places. And a great appreciation that I've heard that, that the police hear when they give information to the council, and the council talks about it in these meetings, and then you guys usually get a car over here, you're doing something there, you're taking action. So a lot of kudos and appreciation for that. So thank you very much for all you're doing.
All right, thank you. So a couple of things. Councilman Burns and also Councilwoman Kesty talked about Monday. It is Memorial Day. The American Legion is putting on a program at 11 a.m. at Union Cemetery. This will be my 7th year that I'll have the honor to also share a speech there. I always am honored to do that. If you are unable to make the 11 a.m. service, please try to be mindful at 3 p.m. This is a kind of a nationwide thing at 3 p.m. To give a moment of silence to those who have died, who have given all. So that is that. So the ribbon cutting over at Anacortes Resource Center is going to be Wednesday, May 29th, next week at 3:30. The council, and everyone actually is invited, but the council has been invited to that. I did send that out to you via email. And also the Skagit Trail Builders, they are having their next work session this Saturday, and you can go to their website to find out more information as to where to sign up and where to meet them, and how long they'll be working on Saturday. Next, we are going to move into public hearing. This is going to be on the 2024 budget, amendment number 2. And in the public hearing, the way that this will work is that first we'll have Kelly Conklin talk about the budget, and then I will open it up to the public for any comments that they may have. And then I'll turn it over to the council, and they can ask any questions or make comments. And this, of course, is a first read, so we will not be voting on it, and it'll be coming back to you. So, Kelly, do you want to?
Yes, good evening, council. Before I started, just want to make note of a comment Councilmember Koch made about the Finance Committee meeting. The 2025-2026 biennial budget calendar is posted on our website and available in the committee packet as well. So two places you can find that item. Just for some background, the 2023-2024 biennial budget was adopted by the council in November of 2022. We did a mid-biennial update of the 2024 portion of the budget in February of this year of 2024. We're presenting this amendment similar to how we have in the past in a couple of different formats. So we have a broad range of ways to look at this. The first one is in the actual ordinance itself, where we have a table of budgeted revenues, budgeted expenditures, and the projected excess and deficits. We also have a memo that has just a little bit different information that includes the estimated beginning cash, and actually probably should update that to the actual beginning cash. It's no longer an estimate. The budgeted revenues, budgeted expenditures, and then our projected ending cash in each fund. So those are kind of the high-level views of what we're recommending for the budget. And then we have a very detailed view of the budget in a proposed budget changes document. This shows the original budget, and by original budget, it means the current budget that has been approved by council. It also includes the proposed budget, so what we would change the budget to. And then the best way to look at it is to look at the difference column, and that'll show you the items that have changed. Anything in that large document that has a 0, we've made no change from the approved budget. And then the last 2 pages of that document are, instead of the detail of all those line items, just shows the fund. So the current budget, our new proposed budget, and the difference. And on that back page, you can get a good broad overview of the items we've changed. We've only have changes in a couple of our city funds. Just wanted to highlight a couple of the key points. There's really not a significant amount of changes in this budget. The first one is in Fund 1, the general fund. This includes the part-time human resource analyst position that was approved by council. We also made changes to Fund 104, the arterial streets, updated projects based on what projects are being performed this year. We will have some additional changes to Fund 104 in the second read of those, working with Mark and Bill to make those additional changes. And then Fund 505, the Public Works Facilities, we've added the Public Works vehicle building as an expenditure. We may make some additional changes on that and actually pull that expenditure off depending on when we can get the offsetting revenue to cover that. But those are the highlights of the budget amendment number 2 to the 2024 budget.
Okay, I am going to open up now to the public. Is there any public comment regarding the budget? Anybody within the chamber? Yes, go ahead.
Public comment, not the hearing, so.
Well, it's a comment during the hearing.
But not regarding the budget, though.
No. Oh, yes, we will do that next. Yeah. Okay. And anybody online? Okay. I don't see anybody raising their hand online, so I will turn it over to the council. Does the council have any questions or comments for Kelly?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Go ahead, yes.
If we can go to Appendix A on that one. I'm just trying to understand the Appendix A form. Should be on page, let me get back up there. Boom, boom, boom. So we have, and that's what you were saying was the original Appendix A 2024 budget revenues, budget expenditures, is that correct?
You can see the headers at the top. It's
Yep,
budgeted
description.
revenues. This is what our new budget would be.
That's at the new one.
Budgeted expenditures, this is what the new budgeted expenditures would be.
So if we go down a page to page 48, that looks substantially different. What is the difference in the two of those, I guess?
So the budgeted revenues and budgeted expenditures are the same. And we've just added, the first column is beginning cash.
Okay.
So this is what we started, each of these funds started the year with that dollar amount. And then you add the budgeted revenues, subtract the budgeted expenditures, and then you get our projected ending cash for that fund.
So am I reading that right, that there's a deficit of $6 million on that appendix? Because it says our projected, and then our, here's our budgeted revenues, here's our expenditures. So our revenue is exceeding our expenditures by 6 million, is that correct? It's at the bottom of that sheet, if you want to scroll up a little bit, Woody,
Yeah,
or down, I guess, scroll down.
no, sorry, you want to go
Right
up,
there.
Woody?
Yeah,
Or you want the 6 million on Appendix A?
oh, Appendix A, 46, yeah.
On page 46, Woody.
I went down through the budget. How does that, maybe you can spend a little time explaining us that. You can go up a little bit or down of.
So the first fund, Fund 104, arterial streets, it has a negative of 1.5 million. Where we have been working with Mark in this week after the packet has gone out, and have some significant changes to 104. So we will have some changes to 104 in the second read of this budget. Going down, there are funds where for just this year, we're spending more money than we've brought in. But for example, like the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, we've talked about this fund specifically before, but for example, we got all of the federal money in 2 payments, so now we're only spending money out of it. We're never going to get revenue into that fund. So that's one.
I think that's 3/4, right, of a million, and then the 1.5 million. But we were at 6 million, so I was just wondering because we have talked about the ARPA fund and how that's going to be.
I was just going down the list of the
perfect.
big
Awesome.
ones. And same thing with some of these other funds. Fund 304, Transportation Benefit District, Fund 311, Parks Impact, Fund 314, Transportation Impact Fees. Those funds, we can only spend on specific purposes. So generally, we build up those funds, and then we spend them on specific projects. So we're spending more on those projects than we're bringing in this year, but we do have the available cash in that fund to spend on these projects. The other big one is the Sewer Capital Projects Fund, and we're spending some money working on capital projects. But the Sewer Capital Projects Fund is designed to build up over time, and then it usually gets transferred to operations and then spent. So it's designed to build up and be spent on large projects. And then on Fund 505, this is the Public Works Facility Fund. That's the one where we've put in this draft the expenditures for the vehicle storage building at the new Public Works site. But in the second read, we're either going to take out the expenditure or add in the associated revenue if we're closer to knowing when that is going to occur.
So those areas that are deficit within there, just like that building, the money's set aside from previous years of collection. We're not projecting that growth in the future, or are we projecting part of that deficit to be covered by growth out of the future?
All except Fund 104 and 505, all of the other funds, we have already built up the cash to prior cash plus current year revenues to cover that, to cover the expenditures that year. So our ending cash would not be negative in any of our funds.
So this year, we basically have 2.25 million that is set aside for those two funds, the 104 and the 505. But the rest of them will be out of projected income or projected taxes or projected impact fees, or the majority of that. Is that correct?
Well, so you can see, for example, let's get a good example. Fund 311, Parks Impact Fees. If you look at page 48, Woody's going to get us there. You can see that the fund has $705,000 at the beginning of the year. We project additional revenues in that fund of $201,000. And then we're going to spend 486, or we are projecting we'll spend that much. So expenditures exceed revenues, but we have the available cash in that fund right now to spend all of that money. So our ending cash balance, we project to still have $420,000 in that fund.
Okay, and I can see that. So the cash that we have in investments that we currently hold are at 26.5, and then at the end, after this year, we'll end up with the 20 million, which will cover the $6 million that we look like we're in a deficit on the first appendix on page 46.
Correct,
Okay.
with some adjustments to the second read, but that's correct.
Okay. I was just making sure we're not spending out of the future, hoping that we're going to make that back, because if we're tight now, then it'll be even tighter then. So, thank you.
Councilman Cook, I see your lights on.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, so looking at the budget now, I sometimes have a hard time knowing, in a place and time, where are you? And that's always really helpful to me. So looking at cash on hand and projected expenses, we're not looking at a budget deficit at this time, right?
Correct, that's for the full year.
Okay, thank you.
We can provide as well budget to actuals in this as well. Unfortunately, our accounting system doesn't have the capacity to include all of that information, the current budget, the proposed budget, and the budget to actual amounts all in one report. I'm happy to include that if council would like. The current proposed report, I think, is like 113 pages, and if we included a current budget to actuals, it would probably also be about 113 pages. I'm happy to provide that or post it elsewhere if council is interested. We do have that information available on the website, but quarterly, split up into quarters.
So both the revenues and expenditures will change between now and when we make a final budget. I'm thinking of union contracts. We learned that the county's going to be increasing the tipping fees quite a bit. So, and maybe, I don't know how the revenue side goes in terms of helping us, but I would imagine there's going to be some change. I just wanted to be reassured that we're not looking at a $6 million deficit.
Yeah, and just for some background information, we're not required in our budget documents to include revenue. We're only required to include expenditures because it's the council giving us authorization to spend up to that dollar amount in each of the funds. And we project out revenue as close as we can to give that context of how much expenditure compared to our revenue. So sometimes our revenue projections aren't exactly as dialed in as the expenditures, because if we're going to go, we just tend to be conservative on the revenues, even if we believe that we could go above that slightly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Kelly, the 501 fund, we're showing an expenditure of 2.81 million. Is that in contributions to that fund? Or is that 2.81 million that we're spending out of it?
Contributions to the fund this year are projected to be 1.8, almost 1.9, and we would spend out of the fund 2.8. This is another one of the funds where we put money in every single year, and then all the departments do, and then the department spends out of that fund for large purchases.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, so this is a first read, and as Kelly said, it'll be coming back. You'll have a chance to see, it sounds like even a revised version. There's going to be some changes that are going to be made. So anyway,
Dr.
with
Johnson?
that, good question. Yes, yes.
Just one more quick question about about those documents. Can you add those to this meeting as attached documents so we can come back and grab those?
Which documents?
The ones you were talking about before, the 130 pages of financial documents for the, you said they're available online, but
The actual
can you
budget.
attach them?
Yeah.
The budget to actuals?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, we can attach those.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So at this time, we are going to go into public comment. We're going to end the public hearing. And thank you. And we have one public comment signed up, and that is Jen Hutchinson. And Jen?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name's Jen Hutchison. I am a Burlington City resident. I live at 803 Kodiak Drive, Burlington. I'm just here to hopefully, well, I should say that I listened in on some of your May 1st meeting. You guys were discussing the 1590 allocations, which I have no persuasion to how you all spend your monies. But I did find part of not only how sincere you all are about the vulnerabilities of your own family and friends and understanding the community needs, I just was hoping that I might help elevate your understanding perhaps around what low barrier, the definition of it actually means. I wasn't visually watching, I was just listening, so it was hard for me to discern necessarily the emotion that might have been, read through body language. But what I was hearing was that the understanding around low barrier as a definition regards literally people who have addiction issues. I could be wrong, but I just wanted to take some time this evening to help you understand a little bit better what it means. As a former employee over at the Friendship House, their main core programs, the Men and Women Shelter and the food program, are completely clean and sober activities. They happen to manage the city of Burlington's First Step Center. So it's a separate program that's run and the land is owned by the city. I am a Burlington resident, and when this discussion came and I was reading the articles in the paper, because at that time I wasn't an employee on staff there with the team, I had my own concerns. I'll be completely honest. You talk about a 90-day turnaround for people with low barrier needs to access some sort of temporary housing opportunities, and that can lead to a lot of concerns and conditions in the community that you all addressed quite clearly. But having seen this program launch and being a resident, I should say that we don't have people defecating on the post office stoop anymore. We don't have people harboring behind dumpsters that are adjacent to buildings that are being accessed by property owners early in the morning or late at night. We don't have people using the drugs that was a concern, that evening, on the streets in Burlington anymore, like we did before. I'm not saying that it's stopped homelessness, because obviously it's only a 90-day program. People are going to rotate in and out. And so what happens, the way these systems work together, is you can have clean and sober residents from the men's shelter who have timed out, that basically are going to try to float around into another program. But I just want to help you understand, my mom would be low barrier because she can't do the chores that are required over at the women's shelter at the Friendship House. Because those programs are really set up to encourage stability, and they require activities. So there's people in this community that can't separate from an animal that they love. That's a low barrier. So low barrier is allowing that person to keep that cat or keep that dog, and it's allowing couples to stay together, where if they were to go to the Friendship House, which is really the only other option for someone who's homeless in this community, they would be split up between the men's program and the women's program and only see each other at lunch. So you have situations that are being experienced by our community members. It could be your own friends and family that they have no issues with drug addiction at all that are very much considered a low barrier because they can't even access it. We're talking disabilities. You can't get a wheelchair into the men's shelter. There's stairs. These programs are old. They're not facilitated to allow everybody having access. So I just wanted to come and share that with you, that there's so much more to the meaning of these programs. And the First Step Center, perhaps, could be better allocated with their funding, but I think that one of the things that the name of it is meant to allude to the community is it is a first step, and I feel that perhaps even more funding from other avenues to help different programs actually come to the First Step Center would make it expand into what it really was meant to be. They're not counselors, they're not mental health advocates, they're not, these are just shelter monitors that are giving housing. And that's what Friendship House is doing, is that program of housing, shelter, immediate safety from the streets, and protecting community members as well from anything that could be going wrong, from somebody defecating on the library stoops or what have you. But I'm sure I'm over my 3 minutes, but I would love to share more. If you guys have questions, I hope that you would reach out to me. I don't work for any of these programs. I am a Burlington resident, and I cherish the fact that our mayor at that time was able to make this program available because there's nothing else like it in this community.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else who'd like to give public comment? All right, anybody online, if you could just raise your hand. Yes, we had one. Kirk Pearson, yes?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, barely. Speak up just a little bit if you would, please.
I'm really sorry. Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'm sorry I couldn't make it tonight. I'm getting ready. My granddaughter's coming to see me for Memorial Weekend. Anyhow, I'm just here for if any of the council members have any questions regarding what we're doing in Burlington with the seeking $1590. So you know that, you talk about Memorial Weekend veterans, we are setting aside again 12 units for our veterans. And I kind of did mileage and where the site would be is 4.9 miles to where you're at right at City Hall. But I'm happy to meet with any of you anytime. If you have any questions, give me a call and I'll come up and see you. And in the meantime, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak. And I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Weekend. And we have a lot to be grateful for. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for speaking. And we do, on the agenda tonight, do have a second read on the Volunteers of America. In fact, that'll be coming up here in just a minute. So
Okay. Well,
thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Thank you. Would you be available for questions if they have any during that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else who would like to give public comment online? Raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment and we will move on to unfinished business, item number 2, with item number 1 being struck by the council. So this is professional services agreement. It's Volunteers of America regarding House Bill 1590, housing funds. And Kelly, I believe you're going to be speaking to this. Yes? Is that right?
I was not prepared to speak to it other than there's no additional changes to the item from the first read of the item, and just had opportunity for council to discuss and for Kirk to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. All right, so are there any questions? Lavak?
Madam Mayor, yeah, thank you very much. Now, this discussion is specifically around the Volunteer of America professional, regarding the House Bill 1590. But I would suggest that we table it for now I recently was contacted by another agency here in the community, by Helping Hands, and they presented a really good opportunity to provide that type of structure here locally, but more of a landowner who owns the house having the opportunity to provide an ADU there that's built by a trades program or the high school, and then it's just one family that needs help or one person needs help dealing with one landlord that's vetted by the landlord, and it's not necessarily a loose program. It's heavily vetted and partnered with other people. So I would at least want to hear that idea. It's a very good idea, I think, and the funding would definitely go a lot farther. I mean, a worst case scenario for the entire thing to be set up would probably be about $40,000. Now, that wouldn't be on the city. There's a lot of other people, but they would hope that we would help with some utilities. But I would say we help with even more than that, because that would keep it here in Sedro-Woolley. People are paying $250,000 a year in their taxes that we've gotten for them, and from this community. And although there's a lot of communities around, I'm sure our community doesn't mind helping out other communities, but they're paying that for our community, and our community is having to go elsewhere when we can have an opportunity to do that. And it could even be a pretty healthy template if that was to be more successful. We know the tiny home villages don't work, and the hotels don't seem to do a lot. So I would propose that we at least hear that one out before we make a decision.
Go ahead, yes.
Thank you. I just have to say that I'm disappointed because at the last meeting, I had asked, and I thought that the council also wanted to hear from other entities that might also want to utilize this money, and we are just being fed this one again without anything else. So I'm disappointed to see that. I would also move to table this as well. My question I would have for the Volunteers of America, Kirk, would be that why only 12 for the veterans?
Thank you for the question. As we were setting up, there's only going to be 42 units. We wanted to make sure we divided it up for families also. And if you recall when I spoke last time, kind of the history of this, where originally we were going to build where the American Legion site is in Burlington. That fizzled out because of a zoning issue with the fire marshal. So we wanted to keep our commitment with the veterans. We didn't have to do that, but we thought having a place to have a community room where we could provide some services there and at least have some critical units for veterans, that would be a preferred choice. And also, we wanted to also have some availability for low-income families. So that's kind of how we came up and divided it up.
How soon will these be available, Kirk?
We're going through right now a NEPA, and we're looking at breaking ground about another year from now. And, we have to go through all the permits, and since it's in the 100-year floodplain, that's why it's taking a little bit longer than what we want to do, but we want to do everything by the book and to do it well.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, I'd also like to ask about the 12 units for veterans. First of all, is there a AMI requirement for them to be in those units, would be my first question, because you said you wanted to save some for low income and families, but there are veterans that are low income that do have families. And then my second question would be with our relatively meager investment of $500,000 as compared to the rest of the budget for this, would that $500,000 allow us to negotiate with you guys to get 2, maybe 3 more units set aside specifically for veterans?
Thank you for the question. if I could get back to you and report back regarding that, those are two very good questions. And I would like to, our planning person couldn't make it tonight, but if that would be agreeable to all of you, I'd like to get that information to you. I think it's relevant.
Thank you.
Councilman
Thank you.
Yes, I support additional low-income housing for our veterans. It's, I think, a national embarrassment that we aren't doing more for our veterans. But just following up some other comments, in terms of this funding, I don't know what in the case of this housing project, they would do the administration, but other things, we might have to do the administration, but I'm open to different creative ideas. I think last time we even mentioned Habitat for Humanity, and they seem to also work with similar, populations. So I'm okay with, I haven't decided on this project, but I would like to hear some other suggestions for use of the money.
Anyone else? Yes.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. It's about a year out before we can break ground. It's probably a year and a half of construction at that rate, I would imagine. How do you feel? That would be my question, because per unit, it's about $430,000 over there at that complex that you're looking at. Over here, we could put 10 of our own for that same cost in our ADUs here in the community or more, and be able to house veterans or people. Except in this case, it would actually, the homeowner who's failing in their rent or getting too elderly to pay the bills with no additional income would actually have access to now rent income. So now they're not losing their homes, and a veteran, maybe program or 50% veteran or something like that could go into these ADUs, and they could be ready almost immediately because our municipal code already allows for the homeowner to do that. How would you feel about for that would make a lot more sense for the buck, right?
Well, we're committed, and the all truthful is we're in a crisis here in the county, and we need 42 units, and to be honest with you, it's not a lot, but compared to for what's going on in Skagit County right now, it is a lot. Mm-hmm. I think all of you, I really appreciate you all have, you're very thoughtful with your questions and everything. We're just, right now with the property we're at, it took us a long time. We almost lost this, and it took us a long time to raise the money and come up with the money, and especially with the commitment from the state too. I think we shared it with, they kind of unprecedented that we were one of, with all the applications, they chose 3, and ours was one. We were delighted that we were one to be, chosen, but I wish it was in your community. We're right next to the community, and as a former elected official, I totally understand and what you're looking at and everything. We just we want to do our best job to cover as many as we can, from low income and also to the veterans, but I'll get back to you with the questions that were brought up, but they are thoughtful questions.
If I may, one more time.
Understand. Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, even half of that, I would imagine, because the ask is for about 5% of your total budget. 95% has already been committed, correct?
That's correct.
And then, so even if we kept 2.5% or 50% of ours, we would still be able to get 6 units here almost immediately for people. If not, for the price of 1 unit in that complex, there could be 12 units or 10 units, 11, I guess, at that point, here in our community for people. So the need is great, but for bang for buck and time to facilitate that, it would make sense to be able to at least hear that proposal from Rebecca Scrindy of the Helping Hands and see how quickly could they get it off the road, how much would they use, and maybe we can split that cost or something. Because it's still brick and mortar that she would be doing, and it's brick and mortar here. But it's hard to say that, spend years making one unit when we can have that immediately 10 units or 11 units ready to go. And that would be my only reserve. But I thank you very much for your time.
I understand. Rebecca's a dear friend of mine.
Councilman Burns?
Just one question for you, Kirk.
Yes,
If you
sir.
didn't get our $500,000, you got a $20 million plus project, you're going to keep going with it without us, right?
Oh,
We're not gonna stop you.
absolutely, yes. We'll make things happen regardless. And if you can't, I understand. And we just, because I'm a Skagit County boy too. Well, as a former elected, have been many years, but we all help one another, and that's kind of even been the way with North Star too. And so I respect your decisions, whatever you decide, because you all brought up very good questions. But the reality is, we have something before us, and we'll get her done. Regardless, we'll get her done. If you can help, that we're very grateful. If you can't, we still want you to come for the groundbreaking. So, and I totally mean that too. So,
Thank you, Kirk.
thank you. But I'd like to get those questions that were asked me back to you. And if you want me to come back another time, I'd be happy to, and I could do it personally. I'm just too many irons in the fire tonight. My 3-year-old granddaughter is coming up from Colorado in another day. So I'm excited. So anyway,
We have one more question here from
blessing for me.
Councilman Lloyd.
What's it?
Councilman Lloyd has one more question for you.
Yeah, actually,
yes.
I'd just like to ask Kelly, what's the ballpark figure that fund brings in every year?
Let's see. I believe it's this year. It's estimated at 268,000.
For this year? Okay, and is that kind of a general year-to-year income?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I don't believe it fluctuates significantly.
If you get a chance, could you let us know?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's based on our sales tax.
Yeah, it is based on our sales tax, comes back to us.
So if we have a bad,
Yeah.
if we have a bad financial year within the city, then obviously there's less money in that fund. Sorry, I was just saying it's based on sales tax. So if we have a bad revenue city or year throughout the city, then obviously that money's going to be lower than the 268. Like if we tank next year, which we won't, hopefully.
So I would make a motion to table this for 2 weeks or 4 weeks to at least hear other options and see how that goes. Maybe partially fund or split the funding, but I did think that was one of the best options I've heard in a long time. I know that there's a lot of people, not a huge amount, but in our community that's actually struggling to pay their rents and struggling to, not rents, but property taxes, food, all that stuff off fixed income in larger houses. It's like, wow, you sit on a $500,000 home, but you sell it and go where, right? Yeah, so they're in a pickle, and that would be a possible solution.
I'll second that motion.
For 2 or 4 weeks, what is the council? So,
Can we discuss?
yeah,
Can we discuss that portion?
Yeah.
Because I would like, what I would like to see is all these other people, Helping Hands and the Habitat for Humanity. Thank you. And anyone else that we can have come in here and give them the opportunity. So, Kirk, there's no real deadline for when we could get this money to you, is there?
No,
Based-
Not right now. We're looking for commitments.
Okay,
Cool,
so
yeah.
I'd like to see every other group have their chance to come in.
Maybe 4 weeks then?
I don't know if
Just
that'd be
based-
enough time.
it's
That's only
just
2
based on how-
meetings.
Oh,
Yeah,
Do we have to put a timeline on it?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
okay.
But you're looking specifically for projects that are happening here in Sedro-Woolley?
Well, we're looking for brick and mortar, hopefully here in Sedro-Woolley, yes, that is supporting their community. That's not the entirety of the funding. We have the ability to split that funding up too, but yes, the taxpayers have been paying, and I think that they would love to see the reason why they pulled into their purses to pull out and put into the pot was to help their community members. If there's excess in our community, then we can start helping out others. But it's like a plane going down. Put your mask on first, and then you can help the guy next to you. And so we're not going to do very well if our community is expanding a homeless population while we're spending excessive amounts on other areas and whatnot. So if it's a viable, low-cost solutions and it can do good, I say and it would introduce a trades program, that one. Maybe Habitat for Humanity introduces trades programs too. So you're looking at multiple facets, not just providing a house, but trades, looking at providing rents for people that don't have it, looking at providing, housing for people who are needing it. So yeah, I would say that would be the criteria.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
I have one.
Yes.
I would agree with that, as well as I am not a fan of low barrier in any shape or form, so I would like to see things that are not that, and otherwise I'm good.
Oh, well, I'm familiar with I have talked with Rebecca about that program. Over this past week, I've had conversations with her regarding it, and it would be low barrier.
It couldn't be low barrier to have an elderly woman have a rental of an ADU to a person who's possibly going to harm her, right? So there's got to be safety concerns that are established. And I think if there's a criteria, we wouldn't be necessarily making those, but we wouldn't be funding it if there's not safety concerns. It's not on the council to decide whether they go forward. Somebody can put an ADU on their house and rent it to somebody who has less fortunate and receive a voucher. So that's not even on the table. The table is, could we help fund those with the right principle? But if you're suggesting low barrier, now with the woman who came and spoke in public comment talking about pets and things, it's different. So for drug use in these homes, I would expect to see criminal background checks and the homeowner vet and accept that person into the property. Because if we're looking to help out elderly people who need rent, through voucher programs, and other people who are veterans or elderly themselves that don't got rent, we're making a match. We're not, you know what I mean? That would be important to me. I would not want the elderly in this community being put at risk. So I gotta put that forth.
Can I add something real quick? When I was doorbelling for my campaign, I was struck by how many, not only elderly, but people with disabilities who told me how close they were to losing their houses. And if this kind of program could help them stay in their house with, as you said, some reasonable protections, it's certainly worth looking at, as well as other possibilities. Like I said, I'm not opposed to, and I think that the program in Burlington will have some very beneficial aspects, but I think we always think Sedro-Woolley first, and I'm okay with doing that.
To be clear, low barrier, as in drug use, and what I was told with the First Step project, when the woman first came, she said that they would be allowed to do drugs off the premises and come back as long as they weren't too high or too drunk. I am talking about that when I am speaking of low barrier projects, not grandma with a dog who she can't separate from. So I'm very much in favor of helping our elderly, our veterans, our families who are trying to make it. I am not going to perpetuate this cycle of allowing people to do drugs and making sure that they get a home first and then they'll stop the drugs. That is not what I am about. So just to be clear.
Yeah, I was under the impression this would be like third, fourth, fifth step down the way, not in that scenario, but more of, elderly people who are having a hard time paying their rent or have already lost their house and don't know where to go. They got Social Security. They're going to go drive Domino's Pizza at 85 years old. I mean, Yeah, or, you know, veterans or people who lost their loved ones and they just can't handle life anymore, you know, didn't get right with their job, and so they just need a place, you know? Me and my wife lived in a tent for a while, right? And so we did that because we didn't want to separate and go into two separate groups. And so we were working very hard, and it wasn't a drug situation, as I understand that people can get into, but it was a situation where we just were on hard times. And so we traveled around, got into a tent, traveled across the country, and then bought a tent with the last of our money, and stayed there, got a job, and we both went to work every day, came back to our tent with the food we made at our restaurants, and then built up enough to get into a shared apartment, and then an apartment, and that was the way up. So I do understand that separations and not having a place to go when you're just trying to get by. It isn't, it's all it is, you know? Sometimes you just, you know.
Councilman Burns?
I think we're getting a little too far in the weeds but low barrier, we're kind of confounding the difference between someone's rules versus the actual definition of low barrier. It doesn't mean that they need to have low standards. So we can have a low barrier where they get to have their dog, their spouse, their kids, all those things, and still be within the legal definition of that. But we don't have to allow drug abuse, alcoholism, someone screaming at the top of their lungs at 3 o'clock in the morning. Those are things that you could allow to restrict if that was what the council is so inclined to do. But I would be inclined to allowing those lower barriers so that we are ensuring that people can bring their support animal. People don't have a reason why they are not taking the place that is available to them just because they have a child that's living with them that's an adult, or they have other issues that come up. So it's just my thought on that part.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Koch?
Yeah, just a sort, I don't know how directly this affects this, but I saw in the paper, great news, some more money for the stabilization center. And, you know, there is at least, instead of taking folks that are in crisis, instead of taking them to the emergency room or to the jail, which is very inappropriate, now we have that facility, which I think could work with some of these situations.
Well, back to the original topic of this one, table it and bring it back at a more appropriate time and hear other opportunities.
So I had a motion by Councilman LaVaca and a second by Councilman Koch to take 2 to 4 weeks to bring back specific Sedro-Woolley low barrier within the criteria, drugs, options. So any more discussion?
I thought Councilmember Burns brought up a good point that I don't think that we need to put a time limit on it. I think that we'll bring this back after we've been satisfied with any of the other ideas, if that's kind of the idea we were going for.
Yeah.
So the 2 to 4 weeks caveat, if we could remove that.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to revise the motion.
Second to revised motion.
And we'll just, I'll have a reminder, hey, can we bring this back up at some point, or we'll, during our discussions, hey, we should revisit this. Thank you.
Then the way I'm going to put this motion is that for the time being, this motion is, or that the professional services agreement with Volunteers of America is going to be tabled for now until there can be further discussion and investigation in other programs.
Correct.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Kirk, for being online, answering those questions. And I think hearing some of the answers that you bring back will be helpful. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend with your granddaughter.
I will. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I really appreciate the time tonight.
Well, thank you. Good night. Okay, moving on to new business, one item, and that is to revise City Council 2024 calendar. Kelly.
Sort through all my papers here. With this item, the city had a request to revise the council calendar to include the June 5th study session that was previously removed, to have a discussion about homelessness and a presentation and a presentation by a speaker as well.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I will not be able to make the June 5th. There is school scholarship programs that are being done that day, so I don't have it on my calendar, so I already made plans. Thanks.
Is that a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday, yeah.
Same time,
Yeah,
same place?
yeah.
Is that the only change? Is that the only change, Kelly?
Yeah, in the schedule there, we put the item in green. It's the only item that would change. It would be, so the city council has study sessions the first Monday of every month, with the exception of June, July, and August. So this would be adding back the June study session.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
You said Monday.
Oh, I
think.
did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the first.
That's okay.
The first Wednesday of every month.
If that's the only change, I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any discussion? Concerns?
I'd also motion to have Councilman Lavaca excused.
That was going to be my next thing.
Okay.
I'll second.
Well, we have, first motion on the table is to approve the revised council session, June 5th study session. Motion by Henderson, second by Burns. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And then moving on to, I believe, Councilman Henderson, you made the motion to excuse Councilman Lavaca for the June 5th, and I heard a second by Councilwoman Kesty. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Do we need to do one for Councilmember Diamond?
She called to say that she would not be here
Oh,
tonight,
okay,
yeah.
so that works then,
Okay.
right, okay.
Yeah, I made that announcement at the beginning, so thank you for asking. That's a good question. Okay, moving into executive session, we have two items that we're going to be discussing. The first is a discussion with the legal counsel about current or potential litigation. This is RCW 423110-1I. And the second discussion will be on real estate,
You did?
RCW 423110-1C. And how long do you think we will need, Mr. Freiberger? Okay, 15 minutes, it's 7:26, so we will be back at about 7:40.
Madam Mayor, real quick.
Yes.
We seem to be having technical issues. I will be reaching out to Nikki via phone to see if we can get them resolved.
Okay, thank you.
We can't get in that way. Learning. But we had plans to open it up.
Takes me a while to get my legs going after sitting down.
No worries. I'll just slide that after a minute.
I was just gonna. Sorry. But I'm just gonna.
All right, it is 7:39. We are back a minute early. And decision has, well, actually, we have motions.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move to authorize the Director of Public Works to sign the warranty deed, real estate excise tax, property voucher agreement, and right to entry documents for acquisition of the property at 900 McGargyle Road.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilman Burns, seconded by Councilman Henderson to approve.
The property of authorization, move to authorize the Director of Public Works to sign the warranty deed, real estate excise tax, property voucher agreement, and right to entry document for the acquisition of property at 900 McGargyle Road.
Perfect. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Second motion?
So, Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to move to authorize the Director of Public Works to sign the rent supplement report for relocation costs related to the acquisition of the property at 900 McGargyle Road.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Lavaca, seconded by Councilwoman Kesty to authorize the Public Works Director to sign the rental agreement for relocation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, and with that, the motion carries. So moving on, before the adjournment, I want to mention that the next meeting will be June 5th. It'll be a study session. And the next council meeting after that will be June 12th. All right, everybody have a wonderful week. I hope it's a peaceful weekend for you all. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.